Hey everybody, welcome back to Dragonborn Industries, where I'm finally able to be the fourth main character from Steamforged Games, Resident Evil the board game. I'm even wearing my umbrella hat today. Just coincidence, but I like that it all fit in. We are going to be working on Rebecca Chambers. We did the base layering the other week when we first got these minis out of the box. So right now we're looking scruffy, and obviously we've done up Chris, we've done Jill, we've done Barry. So Rebecca is the last of the main characters that we need to get done. So we've got our image just here beneath me. I'm going to basically crack on, go straight into doing those eyes, then layering up the skins and stuff. Same process as before. And yeah, that's pretty much going to be the show for the next hour or two. I hope you guys are all well, and I hope everyone has been having at least a good week. But it's the weekend, and I don't go out. And maybe you don't go out. And now it's just time to sit around. Maybe you're painting some minis, I'm going to paint some minis. We can talk shit, and then we can load it all up on YouTube for the internet to laugh at us forever. So let's do that. But hopefully you guys are all good, and everybody is doing just fine. I'm going to quickly just zoom in on Rebecca here to get that skin tone, because whereas we saw with Chris and Jill, they had a little bit more of a rosy skin tone, but actually Rebecca is quite pale. So I think I'm going to stick with those Guardsman flesh from Citadel rather than the Army Painter tonight, because I really like those for my paler flesh tones, whereas I would use Barbarian flesh and tanned flesh for my rosy skin tones. So let's grab the skin tones that we need. So I've got everything to hand. If I can see into my box. So we've got Cadian flesh tone, and we've got our Ungor flesh if we need it. I doubt we're going to need Ungor, because I think it's going to be more like Kislev flesh. That is going to be the better one to go with. So let's do that one there. Hopefully you guys can hear music and hear the talking, and I'm not on mute. I can see my little green bar going up and down, so I should be all good. And yeah, there's quite a bit of detail to pick out on Rebecca as well. We've got a really quite bright white tack vest there, as well as the red rescue symbol on the back and on that back pouch there. And all of that detail is on that Steamforged game miniature. So I am going to have to paint those in, not a problem. The eyes are very small on Rebecca, so this is going to be hard. So we've got the nerd goggles ready to go. And yeah, we've got some whites and we've got some greens. I'm going to be working a lot with a lot of Guardsman tones, just to layer up her clothing. And then it's just going to be browns. The base of the flesh tone, I've used Oak Brown from the Army Painter, the Game Master range, as that has been my go-to for most flesh tones. So I'm going to go straight into trying to paint some eyes. And the one thing I've not done, so I'm going to step off the screen, but hopefully you guys can still hear me, is grab some kitchen roll. So I'm going to need that just to keep things nice and tidy. It's over across in the dice making area. That's all good. Got it now. And then we're going to go straight into the same thing that we did before. We are going to be putting the whites of the eyes in, and then we're going to be putting the pupils in, and then we'll tidy up around the eyes with the same brown that we used for the base layer to cover up any mess. And then we will be putting the rest of the skin tones layering up. I will need my black Templar as well, because that will be how I separate out the different areas of clothing. I'm going to need my max magnification goggles, because her eyes is tiny. Just tiny. Right. So let's see if I can show you how small Rebecca's eyes are. Not only that, is they are right in there underneath the hairline. So they are going to be really hard to get at, and then really hard to tidy up. That's okay. Should be all right. So we're going to take some Lawful White from the Army Painter and throw it across my desk. I am going to thin this down ever so slightly, because I just want it to run in but not be so runny that it goes absolutely everywhere. I want it to sink into those recesses, but I also want it to be a decent enough layer. Paint washing pot there. So, right. Just going in with an artist brush, gonna wet that tissue there just to pull some of that water out while leaving pigment on. And it is quite a thin amount on there. That's probably too much. But we'll give that a go. The good thing about doing the eyes first is it means I can tidy them up afterwards. Okay. So the white of the right is now in. We've gone too far with the left, but that's okay, because we can either soak some of that up while it's still wet and hopefully tidy a bit of it up, so that when we come back in with our browns and blacks to tidy up at the end, they should be relatively easy to do. So let's put my phone on silent so that we're not disturbed. So being a mess like this to begin with, absolutely fine, because as right there, she looks more like a zombie in the headlights. Once we get those pupils in, we are going to tidy up around those whites and bring them back into scale and back into size. But we do need those to dry first, and then we need to work out the position of the eyes. As with Chris, Jill, and Barry, because they were looking down the iron sight of a gun each time, they have this head down, eyes up, so those pupils are at the tops of the eyes, leaving a white line underneath it, which gives us a lot of direction. But Rebecca is almost exploring. Her head is pointed down, and if we were to look at her from a distance and flat, it's almost like she's slightly up and slightly to one side. So we may have to put some direction on her there. What I may do, because the base of the hair is black, I may come in with the black pupils. But as long as you can cover what you do, you should be pretty good to go with either black or brown, so either your skin-based tones or your hair-based tones if the hair is touching. So I'm going to use, again, the tiniest amount. There is next to nothing on there of the brown. I'm going to go for the left eye first. I'm coming in from the top. And I'm just putting a little marker down, which is across the top of the eye and in the bridge of the eye. And it is just there to give me a rough centre of where the eyeball is. And then I'll put the second one in on the right eye. And with that, it should hopefully tell me if I'm boz-eyed, if I'm going out different places. And then I can just build them up from there. Again, we're just going to take a tiny, tiny bit, and if it's too much, we'll just use that wet area of tissue just to knock it back and bring it right back down to the tip. Yeah, so I think they're going to be central and looking in the same direction. So now I can load up a little bit more. Make sure it goes down to that tip, which is coming in again. And they're just these tiny, tiny little kisses with the brush. So, the point that we get to is that they should look like an absolute mess right now, but that's absolutely fine, because once we've got the pupils in place, and I'll see if I can get, there you go. So those pupils are directional, they're at the top of the eyes, but now we've got all this massive white section underneath. We need that to be really thin, so we're going to bring those cheekbones back up to be in line with the detail of the eyes, because all the eyes on these are recessed in. They do have a little edging to them, so it's quite easy to get to there. I'm going to thin down that brown a little bit more, and we're going to slowly build that back up underneath so that the eyes are then reshaped back to the head, and then we can work on the flesh tones. What we don't want, however, is to be using anything that's too thin, because it's just going to sink into those eyes then, and you're going to
what should be a set of decently painted eyes by the end. You obviously want a nice curve to the cheekbone. You also want to make sure that you get inside the bridge of the nose, as this is an area that, if you leave dark, is going to really, really show up the eyes and the nose of the Mini, but if you leave them with paint going up them, it's going to make your Minis look a little bit boz-eyed. Okay, so just following those cheekbones. I'm going to try and make the pigment a bit thicker on those cheekbones as well, so that as we layer up with our flesh tones, they start to show a bit brighter. I just need to make sure that we get these bits as tidy as possible now. And it's going to save us a hell of a lot of work than doing it at the end. It's just this tiny little corner of an eye that's just not liking it. There we go.
So it will need a tidy up, but the flesh tones are going to go in there and do the rest of that. But her eyes are minuscule, realistically, on that Mini. So once we've got those flesh tones in, the dark base layer around there should make them stand out a lot brighter. So I'm going to come away from that for a minute and look at it with ungoggled eyes. Yeah, that's what we want. So now we need to find the next area to work on, and we are probably going to hit the flesh first, or we could tidy up the hair actually. Hey Fluffy!
Hope you are having a good time.
So let's see who's in chat. Awesome.
So I'm just going to grab some of this Templar Black, or Black Templar, which is a contrast paint. Take some of the liquid out there but leave the pigment. I'm just going to tidy up the base of the hair where I've hit it with some of that brown, because I want to use a different brown from the base of the flesh. There's also a tiny bit of hair just covering the very tip of that right eye. I didn't have it fully painted up, and I want to make sure that it's nice and dark. When we layer up, we're going to use that black as essentially the wash on the inside, because I don't overly wash Minis or anything like that. So I like to let this primer or the base colours do a lot of that shade work.
So let's grab
a look at Rebecca there. Okay, so we're all good. We've got those turnips. Oh, there is, however, a tiny bit of skin that I've missed.
She's got, and you can see them here in the picture, she's got these turnips at the bottom of her trousers and these like Converse style assault boots, I guess, on,
which I'm really looking forward to painting. But on the model, there is ankle showing. So I'm going to make sure that we paint that with the brown of our base layer, so that we don't miss that, because that's going to be obviously quite a bright colour against that green and that black that we want to show off. It's going to add separation between the boot and the clothing. Now, it doesn't need to be too thick. You want to make it nice and thin. So the black and the brown together, working as our base layer, should be really good for those flesh tones.
So let's go in from
there and have a look. There's a few bits of fingers that we can get as well.
They all wear these
fingerless gloves in the Stars team, and we want to make sure that that is shown on these minis as well. There is the tips of the fingers just being base coated up, just so we don't miss them. Luckily the other ones are quite prominent, but they're on the first aid spray, so I can be quite liberal here. And I certainly want to have it contrasting the green first aid spray that's going to be at her side. Like I said, we're going to be working with a lot of greens for Rebecca because all her clothes, you've got those dark green trousers, you've got the khaki top, you've got the boots, you've got the first aid spray, even like parts of the straps. So the straps around her tactical vest or her bulletproof vest or stab-proof vest, whichever one it is, are also green against the white. So we want to make sure that that is also a piece of detail that we don't miss. Right, let's go in and have a quick look at anywhere we need to grab. No, I think that's that. I do put the base layer of that green on the boots because they're quite dark there, so we're going to use Caliban green. I'm going to take some of that, put that on that palette there, and then I'm going to use a little bit of water to thin it down ever so slightly. Because again, I want that black to do a lot of the work from the primer. As for the white sections of shoe, I will add some grey, and then I will highlight with white. And then we'll use black contrast paint to separate different sections of the mini. But whereas the rest of them had either solid black boots or they had a little bit of brown on there. I think it was Barry that had some brown. I didn't have to do much. Rebecca seems more of a fashionista when it comes to Resident Evil. And they put a lot more effort into making sure she was like the youngster of the team, wearing trainers and stuff like that. So let's grab that side there. Running out a little bit there, just going to put a little bit more on our palette. Thin it down again. And away we go. A little tiny bridge just in front, just behind the toes even. Want to make sure that we get that. The rest is going to be done in highlight greens and whites. So that should be all there. Cool. Right, time to start bringing up the flesh tones. So, let's take these ones off for a moment because I shouldn't overly need them for the time being. Only really need us to pick out certain details. We'll get some hydration on board. Right. And then we're going to continue. So, let's grab the flesh tone that we need. It's going to be Cadian flesh tone. So I use this as the base of my lighter flesh tones. For working up to paler skin, especially Caucasian skin. And we're going to grab an artificer brush, as this is a pretty good layering brush for me personally. In my stacked out paint pot, there it is. Grab that. Put some water on the brush, make sure it's nice and ready to go. Decant a good glob of it, to be honest. I'm going to mix it with a different brush though with some water just so that I can keep that Artificer brush relatively tidy because it's my last one. But what I do need here is a thin paint. So we're looking for the consistency of milk. That way we're not getting big old streak lines or anything like that, but it's also going to have a heavy enough pigment that we can still see what's going on and only need a layer or two. So I'm going to go down to a smaller magnification on my glasses. Whoop, whoop. Let's grab some Cadian flesh. Make sure we've got a nice decent point. Going to knock back some of that water just with our wet bit of tissue down here. And then we're going to come in first with anywhere that's really prominent. So like these arms, I'm going to put a little bit just on where any highlights will be, and then I'm going to work the brush back from anywhere there's shadow back to those areas, hopefully pulling pigment from where there'd be shadow up to where there is directional light. And we've done directional light on every one of these minis so far, so I guess we're doing it on Rebecca as well. But it's on her right side and forwards, which is where we're going to be putting a lot of the emphasis on highlighting. And again, we're just applying very, very thin layers of paint just to try and get a nice build-up, a smooth build-up that will not look like I've just put loads of thick paint on with streak lines. I'm trying to always pull the pigment towards where the light is hitting. So if that means going from the underside to the overside, or from the underside to the top, I will do that. We also want to make sure we don't miss anywhere, like underneath the arms or on the insides of arms. And where we can, we always want to try and apply those same techniques of trying to pull the pigment in the direction that you want to be the strongest colour. Just going to try and just make it a little bit smoother at the top there. It's looking a little patchy, but that's fine as it is. So they're the sort of first layer colours of skin after the base layer. But that's going to need 2 coats of that because that is quite thin over there. But when I put the second coat on, I will avoid places like the elbows or any muscle striations, any collar lines, any divots. This is where I'm letting the primer and the base layer of brown do the work of the wash for me. So I need to get into her clavicle here. I'm actually going to take more of that off the brush because it's a very thin area. She is wearing a pink choker. Why wouldn't you wear cons and a pink choker if you're going out on a police op? You're only the medic, right? We are going to load up that area there, paying more attention to the clavicle bones. We're going to try and leave the neck collar, if we can, the choker, just so that we can put a layer on it. But if you go over slightly, it's not a problem for Rebecca because the flesh colours are quite light. So going over it with that pink will be absolutely fine afterwards. As we come to the face, the most important thing that we want to do is put that line down the centre of the nose, but not go down the sides of the nose just yet. We then want to paint the cheekbones, but we want to leave a line of the base colour, that brown, around the eyes so they really pop out. It's almost like having the lines painted in a comic. And go thin. Especially on the face, everybody's going to look straight at the face when you come to showing off a mini. And you can always add more paint afterwards, rather than take it away once it's on. Some of the areas that I'm leaving brown are around the eyes and certain very thin lines down the side of each nose and the line inside the mouth. The underside of the nose. Also wants to be left alone. How pale are... See, Rebecca's lips are quite pale. I could go to this tone and then just do the highlighted tone around them. That could be quite interesting. If there are any breaks in the hair, you will also have to get into there. So there are some areas on the forehead where there is like striations of hair or strands of hair that are separated. I am going to have to get in there and also get those bits. But again, I don't want it to be too runny, but I do need it to be thin. That is base of that area done. We do have quite an exposed top of the back lower bit of the neck. Actually, so we're just going to try and get that as well. I think out of all of the minis, she definitely has the most skin on show. Okay. Just need to get to the top corner of that eye there. There is a small area of brown, which is just like up near the temple, but it's also in line with a piece of hair that is just making it quite an awkward area to paint. Okay, I think we have it. And then, just to be safe, I've gone a little bit too far with the skin tone onto the hair, so I can just knock it back a bit with that Templar Black. Just kissing it again just to dull it down so that I can fix it up properly when we get to the hair shortly. There we go. Okay, so we're going to double check over those bits. We obviously need to get the ankles as well, while the paint is still relatively runny. We want to focus on that band in the centre. We can leave some of that brown around the edges, because there's a lot of shadow underneath those turn-ups. But if you get anything on anything you're not supposed to, just put your brush in the water, dry it off, and then suck up some of that moisture. Just rub away some of that paint. I'm going to go for the other ankle now. Again, trying to pull it into the direction of where you want the light to be coming from, or what's the most exposed area. Okay. Make sure we haven't missed anywhere in that clavicle. and on that face, especially like the underside of the chin, anywhere that is harder to get to. You do want to try and get in there just to make sure that you don't miss anything.
Okay, so obviously it's still on sort of the first of 3 layers, but we're starting to see more of that dynamic, that depth. We need to layer up those arms a bit more. We need to make sure we're tidying up as we go, and then we can work on the clothing as well as the next layers of flesh tones. So, make sure that those arms, that's the biggest area of skin, are nice and smooth with the secondary layer here. We also need to make sure that we go in and do those fingertips. With that, it should be enough to start giving us depth to the skin. Okay. Just see that I've missed a bit there on that leg and a little bit on that front bit. The mold line is right down her trouser leg at the front, which is kind of annoying. So, let's tidy up that second area of hair now that the contrast has dried on that bit. Ooh. Almost too far, almost. Wait a little bit. So, let's grab our Deathwool Forest. This is what we use to base layer the pouches, the webbing belts, and any straps. I'm going to go in and do a second layer on those to thicken it all up, because when we come in with our Death Guard Green, which is going to be our top highlight, we want that to really show up. I will have to darken some of this, the shade that we're using now, to go into the trousers. So we do have those really deep dark green trousers, but it's not as dark as the Caliban green is. That's a very, very, very deep base colour. And I want to bring some tone out of that. I want to bring some, like I say, more dynamic to the mini, but I also want to get as close to that picture as possible, realistically. So we're going to put a nice layer on to all of our webbing and our pouches, all of our straps, just to make sure it's nice and thick, because these are the details that I really, really want to show up. I really want them to pop off the darker colours of her trousers, but also she's wearing quite a bright t-shirt, so I'm also going to do it over most of the t-shirt. I'm going to leave quite a few areas that are normally in shadow with that darker green, and then I will use the next layer of greens to start highlighting in a direction, and then we'll start adding some white in places to then really give it the direction of light. I'm even going to hit her watch up with some green, because I think that she would completely be wearing all of the same colours. So we've got these two belts across the front here. And then we're going to make sure we get the underside of that pouch. Make sure we get all of the belts around here, all of those straps around the side. One just in front of her arm on that
vest. We've also got the shoulder straps for that tack vest are also a khaki green. Then, let's take nice thin layers of this green. I'm going to start applying that to her t-shirt as well. I'm going very thin right now, and I'm hoping that the base layer of the Caliban green is going to do a lot of our shading, our washing, instead of using a wash. And then I will layer any highlights with that Death Guard green. I will paint the Stars badge last, like we did with the other 4 members of the party. A lot of that t-shirt is also exposed at the front. A small amount at the back. And then we can pull that pigment again to the places that we want it to be stronger. Tops of the shoulders, direction of light, anything with a major ridge or highlight that needs doing. So again, we're starting to get some difference in colour now between the trousers and the t-shirt. She is wearing a lighter t-shirt than the trousers, but I still need to go lighter because I want the straps to be somewhere in the middle. And I know they're a bit grayer on the actual picture, but I'm sticking to the greens. There is, however, a slight overspill of that runny khaki just there, and I want to make sure that these trousers stay dark. So I'm just going to hit those highlighted areas, or the really strong areas, with that Caliban green. Also tidy up any mistakes that I made. Then we can move on to the next bit. So I need to go over with the next layer of that same flesh. There's an area in the neck that I've got quite thin, but also the back of the neck and those really high cheekbones. How are the arms doing? Let's have a quick gander at those. So, get those top areas, anywhere that's a little bit thin. That's a main area that we look at and are drawn to with our eyes. Places like the bridge of the nose, the chin, cheekbones, jawline, all of that we want to keep it quite strong with pigment, but also quite smooth. So that should be a tiny bit on that ankle there as well. Could just do with thinning and re-going over. There it is. And there. Yeah. So, as for the second layer of skin, that's what we're going to go with there. And then I'm going to have to get some grey out and start going over that tactical vest, because that's the next port of call. So I'm going to get ye old faithful Orc Grey, and then I'm going to lighten this up with some white. I've already got some white in this palette pot over here, so I'm just going to add about 50-50 of each. I'm going to mix that up, see what we get, And I'm pretty sure it should be close to what I want. It's very ash in terms of grey. Get some water in there. A little bit more. There we go. And again, I'm looking for that milk consistency. And you'll find with your own temperatures in your own rooms, a perfect position or a perfect consistency, that's the word we're looking for, that you like to go with. So, I'm going to put that back over there because I can pull from that over there. Let's grab some of that. Put my torch back on. I am looking for really pronounced areas. So right now we're looking at the whole front section of this, which includes the chest, the sides on this bit between the straps, and the entirety of the back. I'm going to start layering up there. Quite a bit of armour goes around the side here on that top panel. But they are quite thin areas on these minis, the tactical vests. And if you paint like I do and don't use a wash, you have to be careful not to go into any of the darker, deeper recesses, because you're just going to end up painting away the detail. Quite a nice circle collar line that's quite low down for the front of Rebecca's armour. I'm going to try and make sure we keep that shape. While also realising where the edge of that armour is, and that we are going to be painting black between that and the t-shirt underneath it and the belt. And anywhere that we go from one material to another, I'm going to be painting a black line between all of those sections. Which makes it super fiddly, but I like the results. Okay, so we've got a good section of blockable colour here on the back. We also have this large circle with a cross in it that will be red. And what I might do is actually leave that dark. I was saying that I've actually got to get inside it to paint between the cross first. But they have made it nice and pronounced. So with the aid of my goggles and hopefully with a steady hand, I should be able to do that just fine. I could use something like a contrast paint like Apothecary White, but I don't overly... Well, I haven't worked out how to properly use them yet is the actual answer to that. I'm very much, when we do the shows on a Thursday with Warrior Prince 3D with Richard, he's been trying to do the whole lot with speed paints and contrast paints, just to kind of show off how quick you can paint something. But because I don't work with washers, I don't really know how to push that pigment around all that well, which I suppose I should go away and really learn, but I haven't overly had to. I've come away from washers quite a bit, so I actually just paint in the details now, and then go around and tidy up afterwards. So, hopefully, this should show up. You'll still see that darkened cross on the back that's going to be red with that circle around it. We've now got the grey as a base layer onto that tack vest. And try to get some between some of the straps there, all around the side.
and where it's around the sides and between the straps, that can stay grey. That can, I don't have to paint those areas white because that is our darkened shadow. Whereas the whole of this front bit, we'll use a bit of Corax, and then we might even use Corax with a little bit of the green maybe, just to give it a slight hint of tone with that, but it should be fine. I'm also going to take that grey and I'm going to go round anywhere that's white. So we're looking at the cuffs of the trousers, we are looking at the tips and the sole edges of the boots. I actually think that's about it. So let's grab a decent amount, while not being too much. We're going to paint as if they were Cons, because they do look like Converse in that picture. I think that was one of the reasons I liked Rebecca when I first played Resident Evil 1 and you bump into her as Chris. It's like, oh, she's wearing Converse. I like Converse. Dan, she was the medic and she helped people. And I'm all about that. So we want those heels coming all the way up to there. That's quite high. So we've got that bit there and around this side. Then, while it's at this stage, if I do need to tidy up, I can go back in with that Caliban green and I can fix any overspill or any details that we've got in the wrong place. But having this down first will give me that shape to work with when we get to the final highlights and those final detailing bits. It also means that while I do this bit here, I don't have to be too precious about the base, because we are going to be repainting that base black again at the end. And blacking the base is one of the last things that I do. Okay, so let's see where we're at, Rebecca. Grey in there, could do with getting a little bit more on that vest. Just on areas that we are going to be bringing up with the white. So we're looking at the top of the chest, anything overly exposed. Okay, let's go from there. So, we'd have a thicker grey on the areas that we need painted white in the end. We're starting to see some more solid colours now across the board. Fingers and the thumbs are fine. Weapon won't need anything doing to it. So let's grab... We're going to grab some of our Caliban green, and we're going to mix it with the green that we use to highlight everywhere else. And by doing so, we're going to create a secondary tone for those trousers, which hopefully will be just enough to accent them in a different way. Should be nice and subtle, and then we'll use that Death Guard green, the Deathward Forest green, to then do a final highlight on those. So we're going to make sure we get anywhere that's, again, in the direction of light, and we're going to build those areas up. So pretty much got anything that's raised, any pleats to the trousers, any pocket linings, any folds, anything prominent really. Oh, I've missed the turn-ups actually. So I'm going to get those now while I'm thinking about it and while that paint's still relatively thin.
Not gonna lie though, if I was in the Spencer Mansion, I would definitely be trying to put on anything to cover up any fucking skin.
Okay, there we go. There are the turnips. I'm just going to try and build up the other colours on those trousers now. I'm actually going to put a bit more of that lighter green in. Oh, no, sorry, darker green. Ooh, that's close. Just to get it a little bit closer. It's almost a 2-to-1 mix. There we go. And again, I want this thin. I want it to be closer to the water thin rather than milk, but not as thin as water. This way I can pull the pigment where I want it to go, I can move it around freely, I can treat it as I want to treat it, while also being somewhat transparent enough that it shouldn't make too much of a difference and the layers are built up slowly with the same colour. We've got this leg behind that is obviously part of the motion of her walking, so we want to make sure that we're getting the back of that leg and the front of the other, as that will give us the difference in light as we look around the mini. The top of that leg is more exposed than the front, well, the back and the top of that leg is more exposed than the front. Just moving away to the inside of the front leg, the top of the pocket on that other leg, and just behind the arm there on that leg. Throat, let's have a drink. Leg! Ah! There we go. So, time to let that settle in. I don't know if that will show up on the camera there too much, but we're trying to build up the legs. So we have darker in the shaded areas and lighter anywhere that's almost faced up. And I'm going to grab... Where should we go next? Let's do... Should we do the t-shirt and the webbing, or should we do the can? Let's grab a little bit. Teeny tiny bit of shining silver, and we'll do the nozzle and the base of that can now and get that done, because I really want those to pop off as a different colour. We can also get the face of the watch. I haven't watered mine down because mine's already watered down in the bottle, something I did to mine when it was running low. So before anyone says, hey, you didn't water that down, I do water those down. Just this time round, I didn't have to. So let's get that can, that first aid spray top. That will be a metallic that we really want to show off, something that's different to the rest of the mini, realistically. It also ties the watch in place as well. We've got the underside of that can. Possibly the bottom rim. That we want to grab just there. There's a tiny bit on that chest that I can just get to. Didn't get before, so I'm just going to make sure that's nice and even going down that front bit, because yeah, I really want it to look good. There we go. I am going to have to work on the white, I think, before I do the red cross, and I just have to be super careful
when we get to that red cross area. Oh, this is a good Resident Evil track with that. That used to scare the bejeebers out of me when I played Resident Evil 1. It's like just that heartbeat sound effect. So, let's now grab some of that grey. And all I'm doing is going up the insides of the straps on that armour, just to try and keep it nice and neat, but to keep those colours together as we go over, and also separate the green of the straps from the green of the t-shirt. There we go. There's actually a good bit of t-shirt at the back there that I can see poking out the bottom of ye old stab-proof vest. So I am going to have to get that bit as well. It is the same colour as our pouches beneath it, so I have to make sure that when I highlight up and when I separate with my contrasts, that I get those areas. That bit's a bit too wet in there, so I'm just going to use a dry brush. I'm just going to soak some of that away. There we go. Once that's dry, go back in some of that green that we used for the t-shirt. Just make sure we're highlighting anywhere that needs to be highlighted and brighter in colour. Oh, that was close. You popped out of the old mini holder. Ooh, right, so we're at the end of that playlist there. So let's grab a different playlist, shall we? Let's have... Let's just go into here. A bit more chill. Okay, so I'm just thickening up the colour, especially on those shoulders, with that same Death World green. Just so we've got a basis to work from when we get to our highlighting and light direction. Also just make sure that we've got some very bright colours standing out for her t-shirt and for places that she has those brighter colours on, unlike the rest of the team. Just make sure we get into that belt area there. I'm just going to grab the top of that pouch again just to make sure it's thickened up. And what we should start seeing is a thicker colour with that t-shirt and those pouches there. We're also starting to see shade, and we can see it on that arm on this side. That way for the camera. Where we're getting a darker green underneath at the back, and we're going to bring that up. But we do need that to be a bit more of a fade. We're going to take some of our transparent and just, again, work in those directional shades, and I find it easier to put the dark back in than I do the light on top. Okay, now let's grab shall we work on the next bit of flesh then? Now that we have some dried skin tones on these arms. So we now need Kislev flesh. We are going to grab that, and we are going to decant some of that into our palette. I'm going to make sure that it is nice and thinned down, because once more, this being one of the top highlights on the flesh tones We want this to show up and show the direction of light better on those faces. However, once we're done with those bits, we are going to take some white. We're going to add that to that just to thin it down and just to make it a little bit brighter and a little bit paler as well. That way, that will be our final highlight when it gets to skin tones. And I may just take a small dab of that Cadian flesh and just mix that in a little bit, so we've just got a nice transition there as well. Between the two colours. Right. I'm actually going to go back to my artist brush, which is ever so slightly thinner, because I am going to go straight into those cheekbones. And again, we're using the tiniest amount on that brush, just to get things like the nose and the cheekbones first. And then we'll work our way out from there. I'm also going to grab the chin, outside of the lips, and then I'm going to start finding all the areas that are raised that I need to start joining up. With these tiny little dabs. Teeny tiny little pitter-patters. What I'm trying to be careful here of is going into the mouth or underneath the lip. I'm also not going under the neck. I'm leaving the temple. I'm leaving anywhere that's slightly recessed, underneath the cheekbones, underneath the neck. I am going to get parts of the clavicle. Anywhere that's super exposed on the ears. That forehead that is just between those strands of hair and the other ear. I'm not necessarily going into the hole in the ear. I'm leaving that brown and the first layer of flesh so that we have that depth. We also have this nice strong area across the top of the shoulders and the base of the neck, where we have these two lovely muscles that we can paint in pretty much solidly with this colour. We have an area of neck that would be on show there. Same again around here. It's just very hard not to try and get it on anything else at this point. Then I'm going to take this same tone, I'm going to apply it to the tops of those arms, just like we did with the base layers. And then I'm going to bring up anywhere that needs to be highlighted. However, I'm going to avoid places like the crook in the elbow and the underside of the arm. I'm also going to try and feather out any tones between the crook of the elbow and this major highlight, because we also want it to fade in. We don't want it to be as bold as what we're going to do with the clothing. Quite a lot of direction on this arm. Same again with the other one. We've got the front of that bicep, we've got the whole top of this forearm, but we're going to leave crook of the elbow, and then a little area, because this arm's a bit more exposed, we're going to leave an area around the elbow, like a full circle, while also trying to get a dab onto that elbow so that we have some definition of a skin fold there. We again want to go in and get the fingers when we get to them. to make sure that they're also highlighted in the same similar manner. Want to make sure that we get those ankles as well. And it's quite a thin line for the ankles. And then, back into those fingers because I haven't done them yet. I'm only really looking for the tops of the fingers now. We're not looking to do the whole sausage. We're just getting in that tonal change where light would be hitting.
Okay. Hopefully this will show up. So we're starting to see those skin tones starting to make a difference. Especially to places like the crook of that elbow on the straightened arm. You can just about see the transition there on this camera. I will paint the gloves a darker colour because they're always dark on the Resident Evil guys. And at this point, I'm going to go in and try and get that choker. We're also going to try and get the white then of everywhere else. So let's grab a decent pink. I think let's have a closer look at Rebecca. It is kind of pinky red, kind of leathery. Yeah. I guess I'm going to do some mixing between some reds and some flesh tones realistically to try and get those. So, I'm going to take Warlock Purple, which is kind of pinky. I'm going to put that in the centre over here. I mean, that's not that far away, to be honest, from that collar. Looks very different on that camera. I'm going to just take some of this standard flesh tone. I'm just going to mix some in over here. So I think that may be a bit better. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to trust my instinct. Okay. I'm actually going to get the Artificer brush. I'm going to a thicker brush now. I find getting the direction with this one a bit easier sometimes. So I'm just going to try and find that collar and kiss it in places. Oh, it could be too light. But we're going to carry on with it and just see what we get. There is a horrible, horrible thin section just on the inside of where the head's turned that is really hard to get to. We got this, we got this. Okay. We've got a first layer on. I just need to thicken it up ever so slightly. This isn't the hard part. The hard part will be putting a black line on either side of it to separate it from the skin. That will have to do for now. I'm going to grab some white. You know what? Let's be controversial. Let's go some Korax.
Although we do have Ulthen Grey. So, percent, how far are you, Fluffy? We are currently maybe 70% through. We're now at the point that actually we can start looking at the final details and the tidy up. So actually, probably the quickest mini to get done out of the entire range, which is quite interesting. Is that Ultharian Grey going to be better? I think it is. We're going to layer up with that one next. It's quite blue-grey. Fuck it, he said it, he's doing it. Maybe just add the slightest hint. Teeny tiny, weeny dab. Death Guard green. I'm going to thin it out again. Yeah. And then I'm going to add some more white. Some of our lawful white. We are going to hope that that makes a very subtle difference to the white that we had and that Ulthuan Grey. Yeah. I like it. That's what I'm after. I want to thin it down again just to make sure that it all sits in the bottom of that palette, but also I've got heavy pigment that I can move around to places I need to be. I'm going to grab that Artificer brush, load up, take some of that moisture away, and then I'm going to go straight in on the top of the chest plate. Pulling that pigment to where I want it to sit the most. What's good about the grey underneath it is I shouldn't need to do too much work to blend in because it is part of the white and greys. But I can also leave sections like underneath the breast with that darker grey and it will work as the shadow for me. Okay, grab a little bit more for the tummy area. And that's the sort of next layer colour that we want. I do need to thin that one out a bit more and make it a bit smoother, but that's okay, we can get to that. We can build it up. I need to come around back. I want to get into where the cross is. I also want to get tops of the shoulders. All around the top of the armour. Anywhere that's really kind of exposed, too light. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. We are looking at nearly being done. So we want to grab that same white, and we're going to try and get the tips of those toes now. We're going to grab the heels. And those lines that come around the outside of that sole. Same again on the other foot. And then we want to try and get the top half of those turnovers, turn-ups. I'm going to try and leave some of that darker grey at the bottom, just to add some shade. I'm going to edge this with white afterwards. Okay, so that is those areas done. Should start looking like this now. And then we're going to quick look. So I need to get a brighter green on that first aid spray. I think if I mix moot green with the Death Guard green, I may get something similar. Oh, no, I've got a paint that'll work for that. I've got Scaly Hide, or Scaly Hide, which is this kind of green here from the Army Painter. However, if I put a little bit of that in there, like so, and also grab a small little dollop of demonic yellow. Hopefully, oh, that's moon dust. I don't want that one. I want it brighter than that. Brighter. Let's grab. Dripping everywhere. Don't want too much. Don't want too much. Then we're gonna get a new playlist, because that one's just ended. Let's go there. Combat sci-fi. I'm going to take some water. We're just going to mix those together. I've gone too far with the yellow. It's not a problem. Let's do it in the one next to us. That dark green. Let's see where we get to with that. Oh, okay, actually. It's not bad. And it looks so much different on the camera to what I've actually got in the palette. That's very interesting. This is like a pale goblin green from the Army Painter at this point. What I do need is a more yellowed green for this can, because it's a slightly different green to the rest of the outfit. Which is why I've added some yellow to it. There we go. That's the kind of colours that we want. A different green offset from the greens of the webbing, the greens of the t-shirt. And it does have that yellow tone to it, so we do want to have a little bit of that in there. Right, let's grab the next section. We're going to go in with the white now, because I want to finish off that vest and then go in and get that red done. I'm going to take that white, ever so slightly thin it down. Ooh, we still got a little bit of green on that brush, but actually it's still lighter than that one. So it should be okay. If anything, that could be a happy little accident. So we're going for top highlights, and we're going for anywhere that's predominantly in the light. We want to make sure that we're getting tips of toes, tops of those turnovers, heels, I think that is going to be it for there. We can now grab our Death Guard green and start doing the t-shirt and the webbings, and then we're almost done. And we're thinning this down a little bit, just thicker than milk, slightly off milk. So, and with this we want to grab anywhere, especially on those t-shirt and those straps, that is in the light. Tops of pouches. Tops of shoulders. Webbing loops. Notice there's a tiny bit on her back there that I just want to make sure is deep enough with that Death Forest world. Because there are some straps across the back that I think could use a little bit more love. Yeah, there we go. And then back to our Death Guard. Hopefully what we're going to get is on this shoulder here, that brighter green towards the top and then a fade towards the back, where the light is coming in from that side. Yeah. We're just going to grab some of our Caliban green again. I'm going to repaint the details on the shoes, just tidy up where we've done that grey. That's nearly those bits done. Same again on the other boot. Okay. I think we are very close to being done. I'm going to black the base now with some Abaddon Black or some Chaos Black, whichever one I find first. Chaos Black. This should show us how tidy those shoes really are, but also if there's anywhere else on the base that we need to tidy up. I can go quite thick with the brush and the paint for the base. But I'm going to be careful around those shoes. Obviously we don't want to paint over any of that grey and that white that we've done. What's quite nice with the white is it should separate away from the base quite well and give us a really, really nice contrast. Oh, that was close. So the bases are 25mm, but they just don't hold in the Citadel mini holders all that well. So do be careful if you're using one of those. Especially when painting with such a dark colour. You know, one slip and it's either in there or you're going over a lighter area that you've just spent ages doing. Okay, so hopefully now you can see the difference on the base. Those shoes. I think I can definitely go in and tidy those shoes up, but I'm not going to do that tonight. I don't overly have the time. What I am going to do is try and paint that stars emblem with the same black now. It has been one of the most fiddly bits of all of these minis is trying to get these neat. Even with the aid of the dental goggles. Okay. It's time to blackline. It's time to blackline. So, for that, we take Templar, or Black Templar, the contrast paint. And now, I'm going to go round the mini, and I'm going to separate belts from trousers, t-shirts from armour. I'm going to get my big old bits of Glassaroonies out. And this should help the mini come together. And look the part. Okay, we're going to start underneath the trousers. It's quite a thick black line comparatively to the rest of the mini, but this will all tie together. We're going to grab above the shoes. And we're going again on the other one. It's a little thicker than we wanted it on that one, but that's okay. I'm not too bothered about the positioning because it was just underneath the actual trouser leg, so it's barely noticeable. Okay, I'm now going to go base of the t-shirt, top of the arm. What we should see is a separation between the two areas. A definitive line between the two. I've become very, very fond of this technique. Instead of washing. I'm now going to come up the inside of the arm, between the arm and the clothing. All the way down. Anywhere that something is touching something that's different to what it is, we're painting that line in. Even going over and around that first aid spray. And this is very slow process of just trying to not get paint everywhere. Going into that collar line. The underside of the actual choker. The overside, the top of the choker. And this is where it gets hard in that tiny, tiny little gap where her head is turned. And trying not to get it on the cheekbones. Okay, we now need to come underneath all of these pouches. All of those webbing belts. We're going to go between the legs at the back that are touching, and up the butt. So we have a clear separation there between left and right leg. Tops of those turn-ups now.
Paint check to see, I mean.
Yeah, I will do. Let me finish this loop of black, and then I will try and show you where we're at. So we're almost done. So I'm partway through black lining. My camera's over here, which is where I go in, especially you'll probably see it around the choker, around the collar, the tops of the arms. I've not gone around the armor yet. I am painting those black lines in. Base of the trousers and underneath anywhere that separates one material from the other. So we can get that to show on the back any better. I haven't gone around the back fully yet. But that's what we're at the moment. And it's a painstaking process, but one that I've come to really, really favour now when it comes to mini painting. Coming around the back of that collar line, back of the choker. Okay, so we've got the watch straps. Going to go either side of those, and the gloves. Okay, we've got the pockets here. We're going to separate those from the trousers. And the flap of the pocket from the pocket. Got that other turn up. We're going to try and grab the detailing now on the pouch at the back. Thank you very much, Fluffy. Okay. I think that's that on ye old trousers and black lining there. I do now need to go in and paint that red onto that circle at the back, and I may call it done for the night. Bit of a rushed paint job, but one that we're happy is tabletop ready at least. Okay. Tiny bit more just on the top of that trouser. You want to clear off. And there, on that one. And last but not least, we are going to grab corn red. Be right back. Be right, I had to go. Sleeping time for them. No worries, Fluff. I am very close to done anyway. So, not bad. Hour and 45. So, I'm going to put this on the palette. I'm not going to thin it down. I am just going to apply it sparingly. And hope that it stands out enough. I'm going to try and use the side of the brush to get that circle. Because it's raised, I shouldn't hopefully need to paint anything thinner into where I don't want that red. So close. Just like so. I'm not going to write the words rescue across that. I do not have the hand for it. So I'm going to leave that where it is. What I might do is just grab some of that grey and just paint some of those straps onto that pouch at the back there, because I think that'd be a nice difference to have those stand out a bit more, and then paint the black lines down the side of them. There's actually some black lining that I haven't done at the back there, which I can now see, which I also need to do underneath the armour. That's fine, I can go in and get that now. May as well while I'm here. And I could do with... It's almost like an orangey brown, like almost a slight ginger hint to her hair there. So I think what I'm going to do is grab some of that in a second. and make sure that we are fully covered. Highlight the tips of those toes a little bit better. Okay.
So, Clive, it's been a rather quiet show tonight.
Mr. Chat.
I suppose people did go out on a Friday. Shocking.
Right. So there were some black lines at the back there, underneath the armour, that I wanted to get. There's also a couple more down the sides of those straps. We've now painted in. No, you're fine, Fluffy. We had company. Not even mad. Nah, it's cool. Just happy to get the main characters done. And just double checking everywhere else. That hair. I do have a few strands that have gone down onto the face that I needed to fix. Then we're going to a quick look over here just to make sure I haven't missed anything on that particular bit. Right. I'm not going to do that cross on the back of the pouch just yet. I'm going to leave that where it is. But I can probably blackline the underside of the front of that armour just to make it stand out a bit more. Yeah. Anything else I need to grab? Just that hair. So, I'm going to take... What should I do this with? Let's grab that picture and have a quick look. So it's a lot more mousy coming up, but I'm probably going to grab our oak brown and do a little dry brush over the top. And then I'll add maybe an orange or a yellow to that, just to finish off the tips of that hair. But I don't want to go too far either, because I really don't want to get any of this on anywhere else. Okay, so that's the start of the fade there. So I'm going to take that same brown and I'm going to add... Oh, do I risk it with orange or yellow? Or a flesh tone? Let's grab a flesh tone and just see what happens. If needs be, we can always remix. Definitely a darker flesh. It's not necessarily what I'm after, so I am going to take some yellow. Oh, way too much yellow there. We're going to end up in the green section here, I think. Yeah, no, we don't want that. We don't want that at all. So, let's try again. Let's try it with red or orange. Let's take a little bit of that brown. We're going to add some lava orange to it. Which I definitely need to unplug because I rarely use this colour. I'm going to go 2 to 1 here and see what happens. Okay, so we've ended up with a bit of a yellowish orange there. It's quite tan, not as brown as I would hope. So maybe let's re-add some red in. This is where knowing my colour theory would help. Oh, we've just gone straight back to a red there. I wonder if I've actually got the perfect colour already set in a bottle. Let's take some of that and add some of that yellow. No, definitely not there. That again. Just making more flesh tones there. Let's grab that same brown. Oh, or we can add a tan. Let's grab XV88. There we go. So it was XV88 from the Army Painter and... No, from Citadel, and Fur Brown from the Army Painter. What I do need to do is get a very, very finite, very flat dry brush. Right now, we're in Mistake Town if we go wrong. Okay. And I'm just trying to catch some of those areas at the base of her hair. The flatter side of that brush. And last but not least, I'm going to take some Joe Caro Orange and mix that into that brown ever so slightly, just to darken it off a little bit. I'm going to heavily water it down so it's almost transparent. I'm going to get our art brush back out, load up. We're going to hit the dry bit of paper. We're just going to grab some of those really, really prominent hair strands at the tips. Sometimes using the side of the brush will be better on the thinner strands. Other strands, it's going to be a lot easier to paint the strand with those tiny little dabs and pulls. that, I believe, is one painted Rebecca Chambers, just shy of 2 hours. So, I will show you in the actual mini stand rather than in my hand, because I do need to black around the outside of that base. But hopefully I'll be able to show you the eyes. We've got those pupils in there, which is what we wanted. Come on, focus up, camera. You're better than this. Hey, Fluffy, there we go. Thank you very much, Fluff. And we're using that black lining to really pull out the detail. The rest of it is just shade after shade after shade, really. That is the 4 characters, all done and dusted. I do like to play as a medic, and she's wearing comms. So I need to tidy up that foot actually a little bit just down here, but I can do that another day. Either way, Rebecca Chambers, finitoed. I will make sure I get a picture of her along with the rest of the Stars team, which we have right here, all done and dusted. And I'll get those up on my Instagram, which will be Dragonborn Industries and at the Dragonborn Bard. Guys, thank you so much. I will stick this up on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit all the buttons that we ask you to hit. And may the dice gods be ever in your favour. Take it easy.